Welcome, everyone. My name is Christine Champion, and I'm the head of marketing here at Convirza. Thanks for joining us today. So today we're here to talk about how to track digital marketing ROI for any online or offline business. So to shed some light on this subject today, we have Phil Frost, and he is the president and COO of Mainstreet ROI. They're a digital marketing agency out of New York, and they've been helping companies monetize their digital campaigns since 2010. So I know I'm, for one, I'm excited to learn from him today. I hope you all are too. So welcome, Phil.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So first, just a couple, I'm going to wait one more minute because I think we have quite a few registrations, and then I see hand. Yeah, let me just wait one more minute, and then we'll go ahead and talk housekeeping items and work through that. All right. All right, looks like we have a good number coming in now. All right, so the line is muted, but we do welcome and encourage questions throughout. So if you want to go ahead and we'll just test out that question area, if everybody wants to enter in where they're calling in from today, and we'll test that out, make sure everything's coming through. I myself am out of Charlotte, North Carolina. We're having a gorgeous fall day today. Wonderful. Let's see who else we have. All right. Looks like Boston, Massachusetts. Christine, welcome. Another Christine on the line. A few people from New York, welcome. All right, so moving on. So first I wanted to give you a little intro to who Convirza is. So Convirza is a software company. We've been tracking, recording, and analyzing calls for more than 20 years, and we provide two things. So the first thing we do is we have call tracking software. So we can tell you which ad campaigns or which keywords are generating phone leads and conversions, so you can have that closed loop attribution. And then you can use that to help better allocate all your marketing dollars. And the second thing we do is we provide conversation analytics. So that's an AI-powered technology that can listen and decode what's happening on your phone calls. So for instance, we can score calls in terms of lead quality, and we can also detect conversions. We can then look and see if an appointment was booked or a sale was made, or to the contrary, was there a missed opportunity on that call that needed to be followed up on. And then the other primary use case that we have for our clients is it's to evaluate sales and customer service agent performance using conversational analytics. So with that, we can rate, the level of politeness that was used, whether contact information was acquired, and did the rep reinstate the caller's needs, was a promotion mentioned, did they ask for the business? So all this data intelligence is used to help identify training opportunities, so that way you can create an action plan for a higher performing team. So we wanted to just quickly do a poll, and we want to find out, what type of business you are. And I'm going to go ahead and launch that, and we'll leave that up for about 30 seconds if you wouldn't mind answering it. So are you an e-commerce business? Are you a service area business, brick and mortar, an agency or consultant, or something else? We'll leave that up for another 15 seconds. All right, let me go ahead and still have some answers coming in. All right, let's see the results of that poll. All right, so it looks like we have agency or consultant, 36%, 27% brick and mortar, 23% service area business, and a few from e-commerce. Wonderful. All right, well, without further ado, I'm just going to go ahead and pass it on over to Phil to talk about our main topic today. So Phil, it's all yours.
All right, thank you, Christine. That was pretty interesting, a lot of consultants on the line. If you could just make me the presenter.
I am, yep, right now you should have access.
Oh, perfect. All right, you can see my screen?
Yep.
All right, so we will dive in. We're gonna talk about how to track digital marketing ROI for any business, both online or offline. When I say online, that's for the e-commerce sales, and then offline sale could be a phone call, in-person visit, or from a form on your site, like a quote request. And Christine already did some housekeeping. Just a reminder, I always encourage questions. You can post questions to the GoToWebinar questions box, just like you did with typing in your location. Always recommend you turn off distractions so you don't have to rewatch this. But with that said, frequently asked question is, are we recording? Christine did say we are recording. And then we're going to send a replay. We should send that, I think, tomorrow. And you'll also get the slides. All right, so we're going to cover today limitations of Google Analytics. Then we'll dive into how to track online sales or e-commerce sales, then how to track offline sales. And a critical component of that is going to be tracking the source of those offline sales. And by source, I mean the marketing channel. And I do have a special offer at the end. All right, so you're probably wondering, who the heck am I? Why should you listen to me? My name is Phil Frost, as Christine mentioned. I'm the founder of Mainstreet ROI. Our business provides digital marketing services like SEO, Google Ads advertising, Facebook ads advertising, and we also build WordPress websites. We've helped over 2,000 businesses with their digital marketing. In addition to providing the services, we provide a lot of education, like this webinar you're on today. And if you go to mainstreetroi.com/education, you'll see a lot of free resources, and then we have some more paid in-depth courses. And we also provide consulting as well. And my thought leadership has been featured in Adweek, Forbes Inc., and other top media. And I'm also the proud father of 2 cute kids. Had to dig up last year's Halloween costumes. And we've got Violet on the left. She's dressed up as Uma from the Descendants. She is a 3rd grader now, going to be 9 in January. We've got Emmett on the right. He is a howler, whatever that is. He's a 1st grader, 6 years old, and my beautiful wife, Erin, in the middle, dressed up as Batwoman. And that was taken, I think, at Boo at the Zoo in the Bronx Zoo, and we live in the Upper West Side of Manhattan. All right, so how to calculate marketing ROI. That's what we're going to talk about, measuring your ROI. So everyone knows the formula here: revenue minus investment divided by investment, and then multiply that by 100 to give you that ROI. And then to figure that out, you obviously need to know what your investment is in each marketing channel. I'm sure you already know this number. That's the cost of each service. So if you're investing $1,000 a month in SEO, that's the number we're looking at. And then we want to track how much revenue is coming in from that investment. Or maybe you're investing $1,000 in Google ads or Facebook ads, email marketing, whatever it is. We then we know what that investment is. And what we're going to focus on today is figuring out what is the revenue generated from that investment. And that's not so easy to find, and that's why we're going to go through that today. And a common question I hear from clients is, how do I figure this out in Google Analytics? And I actually had a consulting call not too long ago to discuss this and walk through the limitations of Google Analytics, because you can't do all of it in Analytics. But Google Analytics is great at showing you the traffic per marketing channel. It'll show you even e-commerce sales if you set it up properly, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So you could see e-commerce sales from SEO versus your email versus social media. It'll also show you how many form submissions per traffic source. So you could see, let's say you're trying to drive quote requests. You can see you had 5 quote requests from your Google Ads campaign or from your email marketing. And then it can also show you the number of phone calls, and call tracking software like Convirza can integrate with analytics and show you how many calls you're getting from the different traffic sources. Now, what Google Analytics cannot do is track if that form submission or that quote request or demo request, if that was actually a qualified lead. So it doesn't give you that type of information. It's just going to show you how many leads you got from a traffic source. And taking that a step further, it's not going to tell you if those leads turned into a sale and how much revenue was generated from those sales. It's just not possible for Google Analytics to know if that phone call turned into a sale or that email or quote request turned into a sale after you received that quote request. So just a quick summary here. Analytics will tell you how many e-commerce sales you generated per marketing channel, and I'm going to show you that in just a minute. That's pretty straightforward. Analytics will also tell you how many form submissions and phone calls you generated for your marketing channels. But analytics is not going to tell you how many offline sales you generated for each traffic source or marketing channel. So unless you're 100% e-commerce, you can't calculate your return on investment using only analytics. All right, so for all the e-commerce businesses on the line, I do want to quickly walk through e-commerce tracking, how to get that set up. So here's a screenshot of Google Analytics. And on the right here, highlighted in the red box, I'm highlighting the e-commerce conversions. You can see there's columns for e-commerce conversion rate, the number of transactions, those are purchases, and also the corresponding revenue. So you can set this up in Google Analytics, and over time, sales data will flow into analytics. And you can see here, I highlighted a row there for the email channel. So that's your email marketing. And in this report, we can see over this time frame, the revenue was $7,373.16. So it's pretty straightforward. We can figure out revenue, and then you can calculate your ROI. It's going to be the revenue, that 7,000 number. Let's just say you invested $1,000 in your email marketing to generate that revenue. So then your ROI would be 637%. So again, pretty straightforward with e-commerce. Getting it set up, you want to go over to analytics.google.com if you don't already have an account. As you set up, you just fill out a little bit of information to set up your your account. Then you do want to set up both a Universal Analytics and a Google Analytics 4 account. Google Analytics is pushing Google Analytics 4, but Universal Analytics is the previous version, and it integrates with a lot of other tools like Google Ads, Search Console. So I highly recommend you set up both of those accounts. You can install both of them on your site. That's totally fine. And the reason I recommend both, again, is Universal Analytics is it's a more established tool. It integrates with other tools, and Google Analytics is new. So I do recommend getting it installed because eventually you will want to use that, and eventually Google will not support Universal Analytics. So we're kind of in this in-between stage right now. So with Universal Analytics, you have to enable e-commerce. I'm going to show you how to do that in just a second. And then you have to add some code to your shopping cart thank you page. So I'm going to jump over to analytics here. So if you go to analytics, set up an account, you'll eventually at the end get the tracking code that's right here. You just copy and paste that onto your site. Same thing with Google Analytics 4. You copy that onto your site. And I just want to jump back here in the admin area of Google Analytics. On the third column here, there's e-commerce settings. You want to click that, turn it on, and you can also enable enhanced e-commerce reporting. Click save. That's step one. And then step two really depends on what your shopping cart is. If it's Shopify or BigCommerce, or maybe it's a custom built shopping cart. Step one there would be check with your shopping cart support. Ask them if they already have it set up so that they have e-commerce analytics integrated. A lot of them do, and it's really as simple as turning it on, or it's already turned on and you just didn't even know. If it's not and it's a custom built shopping cart, I included 2 links here to manually add the code. I won't spend too much time. We could talk more about this in the Q&A if you needed help, but there's Google Analytics 4 code. I linked to that, and there's Universal Analytics code with this link. And I'll just show you.
We have one question that I'm just going to, if you don't mind, I'll intervene. So we have a question about Universal versus GA4. This person is still on Universal. What are the benefits from switching to like G4 changes to note?
So I would add the code again, just because eventually that's where Google is going, and they'll phase out Universal Analytics. But we're in this weird spot right now where Universal has been the primary tool. It's the one that Google allows you to link to Search Console, Google Ads, and you might already be linking it to other reporting tools. So we still rely heavily on Universal, but since Google's moving to Google Analytics 4, I do recommend installing it so you start getting data flowing into Google Analytics 4. And the main difference is that GA4 is event driven. Everything that happens on your site is an event, whereas in Universal Analytics they have different types of data. Like a visit is actually different than an event, and it's different than a transaction. That gets a little technical, but the main takeaway for everyone is if you're using Universal Analytics, I would go through the steps to create a GA4 account, get the code added to your site, and then it might be a year or more, and then Google will start to kind of force us more into Google Analytics 4, and they'll stop supporting Universal Analytics. That's my prediction.
Thanks for that.
With the e-commerce code, just to give you a quick overview, it looks scary if you're not familiar with code, but if you read it, it's just telling Google Analytics that this is a purchase. You're saying, hey, here's a purchase, here's the transaction ID, here's my company name, here's the value of the purchase, the total purchase, and then you start listing individual products. So in this example, somebody purchased this t-shirt as well as this other t-shirt, Flame Challenge t-shirt. So you're really just listing out the information, and then you send that over to Google Analytics, and now they know that that product was purchased. And that would be something your developer would add. But again, a lot of the off-the-shelf shopping carts have this pre-built, and a lot of times it's just a matter of turning it on. So definitely check with their support. All right, so e-commerce seems pretty simple, but what about all those sales that are not e-commerce? That's what I want to focus on. So let's dive into offline tracking. And here's what you need to track offline sales. First, you have to track the traffic source of your phone calls and your form submissions. So when you get a phone call, you need to know, was that a phone call from SEO? Was it from your email marketing? Was it social media? Any paid advertising? That's the next bullet there. So did it come from SEO, email, ads? You also need to track which phone call leads and form leads turned into customers. So let's say you got a phone call, you know that it came from email, you need to take it a step further. Did that lead actually convert into a sale, and how much revenue was generated? And then if you are tracking that, the last step's pretty easy. You just add up the revenue for each of those traffic sources, and then you can calculate your return on investment. All right, so here is a example of a tracking sheet, and I just blacked out any of the contact info, company, and phone numbers. And just wanted to highlight the different columns that you would want in a tracking sheet. You can use a tracking sheet, or if you have a CRM like Salesforce, we use Infusionsoft, any type of CRM, you can do it in there, and that's a little cleaner, a little bit more automated, but this works perfectly fine as well, just an old school spreadsheet. You'd want to have a type of lead column so you know where the lead came. Was it a phone call, a website form? Most importantly, you want to have a source of that traffic. So did it come again from Google Ads, email? In this example, we've got organic search, which is SEO, or Microsoft Ads. It's another ad platform. You'd obviously have the contact info. You can put that in the sheet as well. And then you need to track the status of those leads. Is it a closed deal? Is it dead? Did you send a proposal? Whatever your sales cycle looks like, you'll likely have a couple steps in the sales process that you could track. You're probably already doing that anyways. And anything that's closed, you would document the revenue. And then you would just add up the revenue per channel. So in this example, we've got Google Ads brought in $1,500, organic search brought in $4,000, and Microsoft Ads brought in $0. And that's pretty easy to do in a spreadsheet to add them up like that. All right, so now we need to track the source of the traffic. So I do want to warn you, this is going to get a little technical. That's not the point. I'm not trying to train you to be developers here. I just want you to understand the nuts and bolts of how this works. And then you could get a developer to actually set up the tracking for you. So first, you do need to add some tracking code to your site because you need to track where the traffic came from. And then as far as tracking the forms, you're going to add a source field to your forms so that when you get the data from that form, let's say it's a quote request, let's just say that when somebody requests a quote, you get an email and it says you got a quote request from Phil, he's looking for this service, and all the other qualifying questions you're asking. You're going to add another field for the source, excuse me. So then when you get that email, it's going to say Phil requested a quote, he's looking for this service, and this is the source. He came from, let's say, SEO or Google Ads or email. So that way you've got that data for all of those leads coming in. And again, you can track that in a sheet. If you're already integrated with a CRM, you could just add another field to that contact record. So then it would be a source field and you'd send that data into the CRM. And then for phone calls, I would recommend dynamic number insertion. and that will track the source of the traffic. Okay, so step one here, adding the tracking code. Again, this is not going to be hard for a developer. I just want to give you the overview so that you're familiar with how this works. The way it's going to work is you're going to have code on your site that's going to read the referral. So that's where the traffic came from. For example, if someone came from google.com, bing.com, or facebook.com, it's very easy. You know, if it's facebook.com, that's your social media traffic. If it comes from Google or Bing, that's your search engine traffic. So the referral is going to tell you where the traffic came from. And the key to all this is that you would set a cookie based on the referral. So if I came to your site, I came from Facebook, on my browser, there would be a cookie added that says I came from social media. And then when I submit a form on your site, it's very easy to then read that cookie and send that information. And if there's no referral, that's what we call direct traffic. So there are people that come to your site, they aren't actually referred to your site from another site, they just go straight to it. That's going to be your direct traffic. In Google Ads appends your landing page with GCLID. That's the Google Click ID. So your developer can look for the GCLID. If it's in that URL, you know that that came from Google Ads. If the referral is from google.com, but it does not have a GCLID, then you know that's it's not Google Ads, so that's organic search. That's going to be your SEO traffic. And then you could set this up as in-depth as you want by just reading what the referral is. Again, if it was facebook.com, that would be social media, twitter.com, Instagram. So wherever that traffic came from, you're going to set that cookie. And a tip here is going to be using the campaign builder so you can specify the source of traffic. So let me show you that. This is Google's campaign URL builder. And in this example, I just put you just copy and paste any web page that you're sending traffic to. This is a blog article. Let's say we're sending an email newsletter. So the campaign source is newsletter. In that case, the campaign medium is email. And you can give it a campaign name. This tool will give you another URL to use. And all it is it's the same exact URL, but we're adding a question mark. And then these are called UTM parameters. We've got the source, which I called newsletter. We've got the medium, which I said was email. And then we've got the campaign. And you can just click this button to copy it. And I'll show you if you go to that URL, and if you have your tracking code set up to read the URL, you can read that the source came from newsletter and that the medium is email. So now you know that traffic, anyone that clicked on that email link and came to your site, that's your email traffic. And you could set a cookie that that person came from email. And I mentioned step 2 is going to be editing your forms. So again, you're going to add that hidden field. And here's what that code looks like. Input type hidden, ID traffic source, name traffic source, and then the value will be empty, because the way we're going to set that value is by we're going to read the cookie and dynamically input that value. So if I come to your site, I clicked on an email newsletter, so I have a cookie that says I came from email, and then I navigated to request a quote. On that page, your developer would have this code that then reads the cookie that says I came from email, and it will have the hidden traffic source field set to that value of email. And again, I know that sounds technical, but it's actually very, very simple to set up. And once that's set up, your forms would then send the traffic source either as an email alert, however your forms are sending you the information now. It might be an email alert, or it might go straight into your CRM with the source as part of that data.
Hey, Phil, we have a question. Does this work with third-party forms like WooForms?
Yes. So lots of third-party forms allow you to add your own form fields. So I know we've worked with clients that use WooForms. JotForm is another one that we've used. So you would just add another field to whatever form you're working on. I typically label that as the traffic source field. The third-party form tool should allow you to set that to hidden, because you don't want the visitor to see the traffic source field and fill it out themselves. You want it to be hidden, and then you're just going to automatically set that value based on the cookie. So again, just going back to the tracking sheet here, here's an example of a form lead that came from the source of traffic was Google Ads. And then I mentioned for tracking your phone calls, you want to use dynamic number insertion. And the way that works is you're going to acquire a different number for each source of traffic you want to track. So you'd have an SEO phone number, a Google Ads phone number, and maybe an email marketing phone number. Then you would add the DNI code. I know Convirza would just give that to you. So any call tracking tool, they all have DNI tracking, and they would supply you with the code that you just copy and paste, put that on your site. And then once you get that on your site, the way it works is, again, if I came from email newsletter, I clicked on the link, the DNI code will dynamically change the phone number that's on the site. And when I call that number, you'll know that because I called the email phone number, that that's an email marketing phone call. And I would also recommend you take that a step further and add a voice whisper. And what that will do, whoever's answering the phone, they could answer the phone, and then the call tracking tool will tell you where the call came from. So in my example, if I came to the site from email marketing, the DNI code would change the phone number. I would call that number, and then your receptionist might hear a voice whisper or something like call from email marketing, and then the phone will be connected. And that way your receptionist or your salespeople can then write down that that phone call came from a specific marketing channel. And then you want to obviously document that either in the tracking sheet or in your CRM. So here's an example of a phone call. So a phone call called the Google Ads phone number. So the person who received that phone call likely got a voice whisper call from Google Ads. So that person knew, okay, this is a Google Ads lead, put that into the tracking sheet, and then you just have to track the lead status. All right, so an example ROI calculation, if you are tracking in this tracking sheet or your CRM, you would then know the revenue, let's say from SEO in this example, was 4,000. let's say your investment is $1,000, and this is for a month of SEO, and then your return on investment in this example would be 300%. All right, so just tying this all together here. So again, for online sales, you're going to use e-commerce analytics. That'll track all of your online sales. For offline sales from website forms, like a quote request form or a demo request, you're going to add referral tracking code that then sets a cookie for all of your website visitors. You're also going to add a hidden field to your forms that will send the referral source that's going to read the cookie that you sent. And then you can just use your CRM or a tracking sheet. And then for offline sales from phone calls, I recommend you set up DNI for all of your website phone numbers. And you also add a voice whisperer so that your receptionist or your sales team knows exactly where that call came from. And then you just document that in your CRM or a tracking sheet. All right, I did promise a special offer. So for attendees, we're offering 20% off tracking setup. So if you are interested in getting help with this as far as setting up the form tracking, if you already have phone call tracking covered, that's totally fine. We can help you with the form tracking, or if you need help with both, we can help you there as well. And you just go to mainstreetroi.com/tracking-quote, and you'll see a form. It's a quote request form, just a few questions to better understand what you already have set up, as well as how many forms you need to track. And then we can get back to you with a custom quote.
And can you zoom out of that a little bit? I think, oh, there, we're missing the top of that. I think you might be zoomed in a little bit, Phil.
Oh, you can't see it?
At the end of that tracking code. It's not a big deal. We can send it out after the call.
Okay.
But we do have a bunch of questions that are coming through. So, okay, let me just back up a little bit. So one question is, I've noticed that the voice whisper sometimes cuts off at the beginning of our client's voicemail introduction. If a live person does not answer, is there a fix or a workaround for
this? Is that a Convirza specific question?
I don't know who's calling in, but we definitely, this is from Anne, and we can follow up and I can get one of our team members to help you and look with that and look into that, why that might be happening. So we'll definitely follow up with that one. And then another one, does DNI hurt your SEO? I've heard you need to have consistent phone numbers online or else it could lose your rankings in map results.
Yes, and that is a frequently asked question. I hear that a lot. So with local SEO or trying to rank in the map results, having a consistent phone number online is really important. That's a factor in getting a strong ranking. So the way DNI works is you're not changing the phone number from Google's perspective. On the website, your phone number will stay the same. And when Google goes to your site and spiders it, they will find the same exact phone number that you always use. But a human going to your website will get displayed a different phone number. Technically speaking, that is it's only showing for that user on their browser, but it's not hard coded in the code, so Google does not see those other phone numbers. So it does not affect your SEO, and that's really the correct way to set up call tracking. You should use DNI. You don't want to have different phone numbers listed on your site, like hard coded on your site, because when you use DNI, you're not hard coding a number. the code will dynamically change the phone number, and Google will never actually see those other phone numbers.
Got it. All right, another question. Isn't a more accurate calculation of ROI the profit on the sale divided by the investment required? So like another way to calculate ROI. Do you have any input on that, whether what your chosen method is versus what this person is suggesting?
I didn't quite catch that. As far as the more accurate one would
So
be what?
It says, isn't a more accurate calculation of ROI the profit on the sale divided by the investment required?
So the profit
on the sale divided by the investment, I guess, to get that.
So rather than the revenue, doing rather than my revenue number where I said it was, let's say, $4,000 revenue from SEO from $1,000 investment, I think what he's saying is, what are your cost of goods sold? So let's say you generated $4,000, but your cost to fulfill on that is $2,000. So you would actually use the $2,000 number when you're calculating it. I believe that's what he's saying.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, you could definitely do that. I was just trying to keep things simple. Yeah, depending on your business, you could certainly get more accurate with those numbers and factor in your COGS.
All right, another one came in. How many phone numbers should be in a DNI? Should we have a different DNI for different sources, like one for Google Ads, one for forms, one for emails and Facebook traffic, etc.?
So I would recommend a different phone number. So it's just going to be one DNI code that's added to the site, just to clarify that. So you would one DNI script, but then if you're advertising and let's say Google Ads, Bing Ads, and Facebook Ads, you're also investing in social media, like organic social media and SEO, I would recommend a phone number for each of those marketing channels. That would allow you to see how many calls you're getting from each of those channels.
Yeah, and to add to that, in terms of like how many numbers you would need on your website, I know with Convirza, we decide on that number, and it's based on your peak traffic for a given hour, and then also the average duration that a user is on your website. So we have a formula for that we can certainly help people out to determine how many dynamic numbers they would need for their website. All right, let me see if any other questions came through. Looks like that is it. Great. Well, if no one has any other questions, Phil, you have anything else, or?
No, I know this happens to me a lot. I close out of a webinar and then I think of a question. So we'll be following up with the replay. If you have any additional questions afterwards, feel free to reply to the replay email, and we'll address those via email.
Yes, so expect that. We'll send that out by tomorrow morning. And like Phil said, any questions, we're here to answer them. So thank you everybody for coming to the webinar, and you have a great rest of your day.